You're live on JoyNews desk. Now, Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Kroma has downplayed projections made by the Economist Intelligence Unit, EIU, on their expectations that the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, will win the 2024 polls. According to him, government is rather bent on bettering the lives of Ghanaians between now and 2024, so much so that Ghanaians will retain the ruling party in the 2024 polls. Speaking at a news conference in Accra on Sunday, the minister noted that the report only serves as guiding notes and must be treated as such. Right. We are being joined via Zoom by Dr. Ali Seidu, who is a political scientist, for us to analyze this a bit more. Dr. Seidu, good morning. Thanks for joining us. What do you make of the EIU prediction and government's reaction?
Thank you so much, Daniel, and thank you to your viewers. I think the EIU prediction, the first part of the prediction is not something new. We know that it is an established de facto tradition since the beginning of the Fourth Republic that governments usually serve 2-year, 4-year, 2 terms, and then we have a transition or an alternation to another government. It happened in 2000, it happened in 2008, and in 2016. And there are a lot of traditions like that which are not scientifically proven, but have been happening in the beginning of the Fourth Republic. And I think literally 2 of them have actually been broken. The first was the fact that only a sitting president don't lose elections, until it happened in 2016 that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama lost. The other established tradition was also the fact that only people with Jones in their names lead the country since the beginning of the Fourth Republic. And we saw that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has been the first person to lead the country without a John in his name. So it is also possible that the 8-year established mandate could be broken, but not just as easy as that. If you look at the history of the dynamics of this particular tradition, it usually happens that after the 8-year period, the party that has put the government in place will usually have the incumbent leaving the scene. So there will be an opportunity to elect a new flag bearer. Usually the new flag bearer, that element of internal democracy usually will create a little bit of disaffection. People will be hurt in a way. And if it's not properly managed, it can affect the forward march and the unity of the party. But usually also, every election is a census on the performance of the incumbent government. So in 8 years, government usually become complacent, usually become arrogant, and sometimes most of the promises that have made are not being fulfilled by the government. The people begin to lose confidence in government. They begin to measure government performance vis-a-vis their manifesto. And all those things adds up to the collective disaffection that usually leads to the turnover in every 8 years. But it also has to do with the performance of the opposition party at that particular point in time. If they are well organized, exercise so much oversight, and put government on its toes, and present itself as a credible alternative, it can feed into that 8-year turnover. So it takes a lot of stakeholder performance and analysis to be able to get there.
Okay, now, Doc, let me know, is it too early to start a conversation like this? Freddie Blay has indicated that campaigning should even stop. He's chairman of the MPP, and he has indicated that we shouldn't even have internal campaigning within the ruling party now. Is it too early for us to be talking about 2024?
Yeah, I think it's too early and not too early in a sense. From the perspective of the party, I think it is too early for individuals to start campaigning in a very open manner the way they are doing. The reason is that it distracts government performance. And usually the success of the party in 2024 is incumbent on the performance and delivery of the current government. So that kind of contestation can lead to serious sabotage, serious undermining of each other, and in a way that can completely distract government business. Most of these people are either ministers of state or cabinet ministers, and that can detract them from, can cause a detraction from their day-to-day performance. and that will not collectively inure to the benefit of the performance of the government. So from the party's perspective, people should respect the calendar, the electoral calendar of the party, and pick out when it is the right time. But to the individual candidates, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. What they can do is that they can start mobilizing at the grassroots level in a very covert manner. Establish fan groups, establish campaign teams, bases, and to be able to do that kind of groundwork at a very discrete pace. So at the point that the party is going to open up for nomination, it is not going to be a swell of the actions of the grassroots at the covert level to a more overt level. And that's going to be a serious continuation of planning. But if you fail to start now, then you are planning to lose. Okay.
Dr. Seidu, just give me a moment. Evans Mensah, who is head of our political desk, has joined us via telephone. So, Evans, with where the conversation has gotten to, it's really whether or not it's too early for us to be talking about who leads the MPP in 2024. But then again, if the EIU has already made a prediction, which to be honest is not that surprising, then the NPP has some work to do to select the right mix of candidates and running mates, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, definitely they do. But we need to separate. We need to separate the two issues. Sure. I think the EIU versus the internal MPP politics. Sure. In fact, starting an internal campaign, as in the personalities involved now, will only go to strengthen the EIU's prediction. Because all that it serves to do, if you have the individuals indeed, as has been suggested, campaigning actively, at the time when the party is yet to fully take stock. Remember that they've already tasked the team to look into how they lost all these seats. That team, I haven't had, at least publicly, come forward with a completed assessment that the party then can plan with. And yet, you have people who are within the government ranks who are already aggressively campaigning. It only serves to further divide the party at the time when the party is yet to fully, first of all, learn from the lessons of 2020 and then plan for 2024. That's why I guess you had party people warn individuals in the party to stay off. I mean, it's just the way politics is done. The party finds itself in an impossible situation. There is no way these individuals who have political ambitions will stop what they're doing. It won't happen.
Right.
And they will have what we know to call plausible deniability in saying, well, it's not me. Other people are doing it in my name. But their inability to call these people out either directly or indirectly makes them complicit in encouraging it. And it's an open secret. The people who are interested in taking over from the Nado. This is going to be an impossible task for the party to stop them from campaigning, either sadly or
okay. Okay. Now, here's the thing, though, Evans. Realistically speaking, these two candidates are very seasoned. The persons whose names have come up anyway. If you're looking at the front runners being Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who has been in the NDC, the NPP's political dialogue since 2008, and Alan Kojo Tremantin, who, as far back as 2004, served as ambassador and minister. So you have two very seasoned politicians, and you have a grassroots that is forming up ranks. How can this be handled so the MPP does not lose out in 2024?
His authority. I mean, for me, it ends at his doorstep. The two individuals who, even before an official campaign is launched, are seen as front runners, as in this case, Dr. Bawumia and Alan Tremantin, are both people that he, the president, has employed to work for him. I think he needs to stamp his authority. And there are suggestions from our own checks that in a cabinet meeting last week, that point was made to the two gentlemen that they should back off. I think there should be a sterner. There should be a much sterner conversation on this. And we've heard Kojo Pini, for example, last week say, tell us what President Kufuor did back in the day when all the 17 guys wanted to compete. All of them resigned. But the challenge is you have a very ambitious vice president who also wants to take over. I mean, what do you do with him, for example? The president cannot, I believe, sack him from his position, right? I mean, for Alan, you could have a conversation with him, and so that he can do it himself. I think step aside by himself. So the president himself finds himself in a difficult place. But I think in the end, it comes to his ability to get them to see what the bigger party interest is in holding off now for a couple more years for the party to sort out first its internal arrangements, learn from the lessons, and plan for the future.
Doc, Evans brings a very important point, which was the 2020 election, which really surprised a number of political actors regarding the parliamentary poll results, and it has given the NPP work to do. Given what is going on then, how would you advise the situation is handled, like I was asking, so that we can have, a better party cohesion for the NPP going into 2024?
Yeah, I think the NPP as a party needs to take a stock of what happened last year, dropping by 32 seats in parliament from 169 to 137, and even winning the presidential election by a drop in 2 percentage points from 53% plus 2016 to 51% plus 2020. So I think they will need to find out what actually happened. I know the party have taken a lot of initiatives into addressing this, but before that issue is brought to the fore, the campaign of the people who want to succeed President Akufo-Addo, like Evans mentioned, will be very difficult to stop. But I believe that what the president should have started by not appointing people who are going to contest. But how do you know people who are going to contest and people who are not going to contest? For example,
if your vice
nobody
president
was mentioning the name of the Agric minister until recently we heard he is also in there. And the vice president is somebody who goes with the ticket of the
vice president.
So it technically becomes unfair to sack people or not appoint people because of presidential ambition and leave the vice president. So what I think they should do is that they should advise them to do it discreetly at the covert, at the grassroots, without openly involved, so that they can focus on prosecuting government business that has a huge potential of even guaranteeing the success of the person who is going to lead the party in 2024. So it's a kind of delicate balance, and a lot of care need to be exercised. Other than that, the rank of the party will be divided moving into 2024.
Okay, so gentlemen, you have given sort of the recipe. I'm going to ask one final question. You've given the recipe. There's a party that needs to rebuild after 2020. You need to focus on governance, campaign underground, so that you're on a good footing for 2024. It will be historic if the NPP wins. What kind of candidate can pull off these 4 factors that I've mentioned? Evans, I'll start with you.
I mean, what kind of candidate can pull off, break the eight, as the camp of Bawumia had couched quite eloquently? For me, let's look at the MPP itself in terms of the 2 candidates that everybody thinks are front runners. So there's Bawumia and there's Alan. Alan will campaign on the strength that he's been there, right? He's been there for so long. His name has constantly been in the middle as somebody who wants to be presidential, who wants to be a president. And then there is, but also in coming to a conclusion on who the candidate is, you need to also analyze the NDC itself, right? Because it's the NDC that could take over from the MPP. You need a candidate who honestly can. What was the MPP's problem in 2020? One of MPP's problems in 2020 was that they elected people, at least at the parliamentary level, that did not reflect largely the will of the people. And there was so much internal wrangling among the NPP's own ranks. That saw, for example, the Formina MP emerging as an independent candidate, etc. So a uniting force, somebody who appeals largely, and the MPP's base has always been the middle class. Right? Yeah. And once the middle class begin, the problem with MPP 2020 can narrow down to the fact that a lot of the middle class people were disenchanted and did not show up to vote. And then but
that was a governance issue. Evans, that was a governance issue as opposed to marketing of candidates, wasn't it?
No, but yeah, of course, it was both. It was both. But my argument is, Nanado lost almost 300,000 votes from the last 2016-2020. They lost almost 300,000 votes. In Parliament, they lost historic number of seats. We talk about that in this conversation.
Right.
My point is, the traditional MPP base that have always been there for them, as in the middle class, voter, didn't show up as much. We didn't see that necessarily that number of votes go to John Mahama.
Right, Evans, I hate to do this. I hate to do this, Evans, but we just got some news coming in that we have to take. Evans, thank you very much for joining us, Evans Mensah. Dr. Ali Dusedu, thank you very much for joining us. We'll get that answer to my final question later.